Hi everyone. So for Halloween, we're going to be making this ghost or skeleton ghost, whatever you want to call it. So we're going to be making this keychain, and I'm so excited to start. So I made it with 3 different strings. There's the one I used to make the outside, there's the white part, and then there's the one for the eyes, nose, and the mouth, which is shiny string. So this is the white I used. This is the black string I used. And then this is what I use for the base string, which is a different set. This is the one I removes fluff and it's a little thicker. And for the eyes and mouth and the nose, I'm going to be using this shiny string that I really like. I've already cut my string, so just going to get started. I cut one string longer, so this was about 20 inches and the remaining were about 12, 13. And then the other one, which is 13 inches, I cut 7 strings of that. And then I'm going to put them together and fold them in half. Now the one that I made 20 inches is what I'm going to be using for my loop. Yeah, we're going to be making a loop for this. I showed that in the beginning. I'm not going to tape this down. Sorry for people that like to see me doing that. I'm just going to make a backward forward knot with my hands. Now, since we're making a loop for a keychain, it's not going to be as long as what you need for maybe a linked loop. So we're just going to make like a very small one. The same amount you make for a teardrop loop. So that's what we're going to be making today. And I'm going to spit this part out because I can tell you how excited I am. I've had this tutorial on for like 2 weeks and I'm almost done with it. I'm so happy. Now I'm done with my loop. I'm just going to compare the sizes to make sure this is what I want. It is, and I'm just gonna tape it down and then we'll officially get started with our tutorial. Now this part is going to be a bit different because we're going to make an H-shaped keychain. So we are going to divide the right part of our strings in half, so we have 4 on each side. Then we're going to remove the fourth that from one of the other strings, so we're going to have 3 and then we're going to have 5 on the other half, and we'll do the same for the left. So we have 5 on the left and 5 on the right, and in the middle we have 3 from both sides. So that's what we want. We're going to cut our strings and tape it down and we'll get started. And I'm going to be using the straight edge technique and the flat offer technique, which means I'm going to be doing, well, backward forward knots or forward backward knots on the edges. So don't be confused, we're starting on the right this time, according to the pattern. And I'll be making a forward backward knot over those 5 strings I put on the edge of the right, because, well, this is shaped, so we're going to be making a knot over them like how we do for our loop. And then the other 3 this side that I removed, we are going to be making individual knots on them. So that means we're going to be making 3 backward knots. I'm doing this because if you check the pattern, I'm not going to put it on the screen, I don't want to confuse people. You're going to see that we have the parts that are black and we have the parts that are red. We're not going to be doing anyone that's red because we're going to be doing the black parts, which is the reason why we are bunching up our strings at the edges to make the shaped part. Now that we're on the last, the third individual knot, we are going to take those other 3 strings from the left that are towards the middle, close to you, and we're going to make 3 individual knots on those 2. So 3 backward knots, 1 knot on each. Now be careful with this knot when you're on your first when you first knot on the left, because you don't want to let your string be loose, because it'll be extremely obvious if it is here. So I'm just going to make my second half first. Then I'm going to kind of hold it down, hold the loops together with my fingers, and then I'm going to pull the second half real tight up there and pull a little bit more and make sure all my strings are out the way. I like it just like that, and I think that's okay. And I'm just gonna continue making my knots. So I have 2 more knots to make. Now on our pattern, because I would like you to be referencing a pattern while watching this video or just knotting along with me, we've already made 7 black knots and we're going to make the 8th one on the left. So on the left we're going to be making a a backward forward knot. So you see on the left a backward forward knot, and we are going to end our first row like this. Now if you notice, I started from the right to the left instead of on the left this time because of the pattern, not my individual decision, the pattern. Now from this bunch we have on the left, we're going to remove one string from that, leaving 4 strings in that bunch, and now we're going to make another backward forward knot over that. Now we have, for this second row, we are going to make a total of 10 knots, which means 2 knots on the side on our bunches, and that leaves 8 knots to be made. So we're going to be making 8 individual knots after I finish this side. And now, just to give you a little bit of a heads up, we're going to be removing 1 string from the bunch on the right too. So that's how we're going to make our 8 individual knots. So I'm going to do that later. I'll just make 7 knots for now and then remove my string later. And now we're going to get started with our knotting. And I'm going to apologize early on because this tutorial is quite lengthy. This is the longest I've made so far. I mean, the checked alpha was long, but the couple set alpha, that's one of the is another long bracelet video, but I managed to cut it down to 45 minutes. But this one, no matter how I tried, I couldn't get lower than 1 hour, so I'm apologizing ahead of time just in case you get bored on the way. Yeah, I'm a bit bored, but I'm feeling a bit too cherry right now to be bored because it's currently nighttime for me. Who knows whatever time it'll be for you, but just imagine it, 2 a.m. I'm smiling, I'm happy, and I can't sleep. I don't know if it's a bit of insomnia because I go through this every once in a while where I'll be awake at midnight for a long time, but who knows, oh well. Now we're going to be taking out our string from the right, like I said earlier. Oh my gosh, I dislike not hitting tables. So we're going to be taking our string from that bunch, and we're going to make 1 forward knot over that. So we've already made 9 knots, and here we're going to make our 10th knot. Yeah, the final one's going on here. So we're going to be making a forward backward knot here, and we're going to end this row. Now for the beginning of our 3rd row, we are going to be removing 1 string from that too. Yeah, we're going to be removing 1 string from that also, and we're going to make another forward backward knot. Now on this row, we're supposed to be making 12 knots, so that's going to be 10 individual knots made with the black string I'm currently holding. And so we're going to get started. We're making 10 backward knots. So we've already made, well, we've made 1, and I'm holding 3 strings, so you can really count 4. So now, I think I forgot to mention this, but for people that are just watching this that are already like kind of experienced now, for now first, you can watch this as a knot with me or not along, because I am having a pretty nice time and I feel like I want to talk, so I'm going to be talking in throughout this video. And well, I have exams coming up in November. I currently have 16 subjects to be reading, but like I'm reading alright. I've almost finished 1, and I'm just procrastinating a lot because if I finish when I have like 15 more, and my exams are like mid-November, so I don't have enough time. But here I am making a voiceover for a 1-hour video. Ha! Now we're going to take 1 string from that bunch on the left and make a knot over it. That's going to be our, well, 11th knot, but our 10th backward knot. Now over the bunch on the left, we're going to finally finish the show by making a backward forward knot. And as we've done that, we can see we've wrapped up our 3rd row and we're getting started. Now this row, we're going to open up our bunch. So those 3 strings we have there, we're going to make knots over them, okay? So over the one on the edge, we are going to make a backward forward knot, because remember we've opened up our bunch, so we already have 3 strings there. And on the closest to the edge, we're going to make a backward forward knot, and then the other 2 strings we are going to make forward knots. But for this row, for our fourth row, we're going to make four rows of black, and then, sorry, 5 rows of black. So we already made the first two, and after this third one, we're going to take 2 extra strings to make the next two, because we're going to have to make 5 rows this time, like I'm showing you here. So this is where our shape part actually comes a bit straighter. Don't know if that's a perfect word, but I'm sure you get it. So 5 knots with black, and we're on our 5th one, and we're going to be introducing our white string now. So I'm going to be bringing that in. I'm going to tape it down, and I'll bring it in between the 5th string and the 6th string. I'm going to show you how I make a color change. Then after making the color change, I'm going to proceed to make, well, 5 more knots of white, because in total we're going to have 6 knots. So the color change, then the other 5 knots, and then that's going to be it for this one. So we're going to take the 6th string and make half of a forward knot over that. So we're going to make half of a forward knot now. Yeah. Then we're going to pass our black string through that's on top, through that. Then under the rest of the string on the right or the left, whatever direction you would like to put your string in. Generally I do the opposite. And we'll make the second half of the knot. So we've switched our colors, we've switched our leading strings. Now I'm going to proceed to make 5 more knots of white. Now this is according to the pattern. Again, like I said, I would like you to reference the pattern after or during time you're making this bracelet, so that you don't get very dependent on video tutorials, which feels weird now that I'm saying it, because I am making a video tutorial. But I hope you understand what I'm saying, because well, I don't remember the last time I watched a video tutorial since 2020 for anything other than entertainment, so it could work for you too. Now we're going to switch back to black. So we're going to bring our leading string, the black one, back into, so we're going to bring it into that space in between, yep, where we ended. So we're going to switch back to black and make 5 knots of black. So we're switching now, and you can just lift your bass string up after making the first half of the knot to make sure that it's not too tight. That's what I do, that's the tip. Now we're going to pass our white string through that and under the other 4 strings on the right there, and we're going to continue. And just in case I forgot to mention, the way I'm color switching is a flat alpha technique actually, and we're going to make the remaining 4 knots, which will be 3 backward knots and 1 backward, sorry, 3 forward knots and 1 backward forward knot. Now we've opened up our bunch on the right. I hope you noticed that. So we're going to be not making 3 individual knots on those strings on the right now. And remember, on the edges of my bracelets, I'm going to be making backward forward knots or forward backward knots, and in my case this is going to be a forward backward knot now. And we're going to start our next row now. So beginning our 6th row now, we're going to be making 3 knots of black to begin, which means we are going to be making 1 forward backward knot on the edge, then 2 backward knots, and then after that we are going to be making 10 knots of white. So let's get started. So now we've done our 2 knots, so I'm currently on the 3rd one now. Yeah, 3rd one now. So continuing this, now we're going to bring our whites back in so we can make our 10 white knots, which will be 10 backward knots in this case. 10 backward knots. And has anyone ever noticed that whenever you're making a backward knot, it looks really different from your forward knots? Because I always know whenever I make a backward knot whether it's in a chevron or a zigzag bracelet or just randomly in offers. And I think because there's the knot I didn't really get well when I started. Maybe that's it, because I remember I could make backward forward knots and forward backward knots well, but I always had a particular problem with the backward knot itself. So I removed 3 of the strings on the left because I already know I'm going to be doing 3 strings on the left, so I just decided to part that out so I don't get confused or not in later, since 10 is a pretty weird number, and so you can do that too just in case you don't forget. Okay, so I was talking about school and having 15 more subjects to read for. Then out of these 15 subjects I have like 4 which are maths. That's already like it on my head. Like literally I'm so scared of writing my maths exams, which is not exactly a bad thing because I'm pretty good at maths, but this one has like completely different formulas. It's like algebra and all the other ones together, and you're like, the test was absolutely insane. I'm so not looking forward to writing the exam for this, like, at all. Now we are on our 10th, 10th white knot. And we're gonna make another color switch. So we're switching back to black. But first, before I do that, I'm gonna use my scissors to push up my knots because you can see the black in between each of the, and it's not supposed to be showing. So I'm just gonna like try to push that up while at the same time making sure that it's in a straight line, because we don't want that to be wonky. Now bringing back our black string, we're going to make the finishing touches of this 6th row, which will be, well, you know, 3 knots on the edge, which will be 2 backward knots and 1 backward forward knot on the edge. Now lift. Yeah. So making our color switch, we're going to proceed to make the remaining knots. Now we're going to be repeating this row, just we're going to be making forward knots instead of backward knots. So getting started, we're going to make our, well, backward forward knot, then 2 forward knots with black. That makes our 3 black knots on the edge. Now we're going to switch back to white and proceed to make 10 white knots. Yeah, the white part has me smiling every single time. So we're gonna make 3 white knots now. On the second, I think I'm gonna try to speed this part up a bit to see if it will maybe reduce the amount of time for a little bit more. So yeah. Getting a bit sleepy. I'm getting a bit sleepy, which is good. It's good because I didn't want to stay awake all night. So I'm just like going to continue to do this for maybe another 30 minutes. So see if I can go at least half of the video before I get tired. Okay, so we're gonna bring in our 10th string now and make a forward knot over that. Then we'll switch to black color, which I have here very close by under my string. That comes in handy sometimes, and I'm going to show you another tip very soon in the next row, so stay tuned for that. Okay, now we're going to switch back to black so we can make our 3 knots in black, which will consist of 2 forward knots and 1 forward backward knot on the edge. Now this row we are about to end is our 7th row. Yeah, it should be our 7th row. And the row we're about to begin, let me just give a bit of a warning or disclaimer or whatever you want to call it. You do not have to use shiny string for this, and the pattern is the same black string they used for every other powder bracelet that I use, like the same black leading string, because the pattern only has 3 colors. And if you're removing the red, it's the same thing. Now to begin this next row, we're gonna make a forward backward knot. Then we're going to make a backward knot over the next one, because we're only making two black knots. And then we're going to take the next 4, because we're going to be making white knots over those 4 there. And I've picked it out. I'm just going to switch the string while I tell you what I was making disclaimer for earlier. So, like I've mentioned, there are only 3 colors in the original pattern. One is the red part, which we're not knots in, and then the other one is a black and white. So the fact that I'm about to introduce shiny string is just because I wanted the eyes, the mouth, and the nose to stand out a little bit. You can use black string if you have it. You can change the colors if you want to, but I recommend you doing what you're used to. And if you're a beginner and you're up for a little bit of challenge, then you can use another color string or shiny string if you like. But if you're not, or you don't have any shiny string, or you want the black white feeling, then you don't have to swap your colors when you see me swapping them, because after, well, this is now, I'm going to be introducing my shiny string. Just like for the cut a bit of the string off camera. And for the end of the string, I'm just gonna make a small knot on both sides so that they don't unravel, because that can be so annoying when they start to separate. So that's all I'm going to be doing. Then I'll tape it down as usual in between the knot we I just finished and the one I have knotted on. And well, that's all. And now we're only going to have 1 knot of this shiny string. So throughout this video, I'm going to be referring this as shiny string because there's black, there's white, and there's shiny. So yeah, just know what I'm talking about if you would please. So 1 black knot of this, and still not used to taping my string down, but I'll get used to it hopefully. Now I'm just going to go over. I'm not going to pass my string under the other ones. I'm just going to put it over, and I'm going to complete my second half of the knot, because now I'm going to be making take the next 2 strings, because we're going to be making white with that. That's the reason why I didn't pass it under any of the other strings, because I didn't want to have to like go through the process of bringing it back. So now we're going to make 2 backward knots of white. So we're going to switch and make 2 back and make, well, we're just going to switch. Alright, so while we're switching, we're going to pass our transparent and shiny string over and under 1 string, because the next string, pass it under that one and then bring it out to the top. So you can see my string is sticking out on top. Yeah, I'm gonna move that forward, but you see I didn't pass it under. So you think I didn't pass it under the other strings, I just passed it under 1. That is what I want to do, because the main point is to make sure your string goes in between your knots, and mine has. So points, another tip, that's a point. Now I'm gonna make my next white knot, and well, then we are going to make our other eye. I think it was supposed to be the eyebrow, but I don't know. So this is gonna be the other eye, where we bring back our shiny and use it to make 1 knot. 1 knot, just like 1 tiny knot here. Pass our white string through that and toward the other side. Now complete the second half of your knot, your shiny, so shiny knot. Now we're going to make, remember, 4 knots of white. So 4 knots of white, and just gonna hold those 4 strings so we can swap the colors out with ease. So this is a Halloween bracelet that I saw on Instagram. I don't remember her name, but I'll probably put her her Instagram page up on the screen so you guys can see it and maybe check her out, because this was actually a very brilliant idea. A shaped keychain of a ghost. I never thought of that. I had not even seen the pattern until when I saw her picture, and that's insane because I was like, and I realized, oh, I like this one. It was small, it was short, and I was like, it's different. So I was gonna make this tutorial instead, and I did ask her if I could make it, and she said yeah. She was actually pretty nice about it. She just said yes, that I could go ahead and make it. So here we are. And now we're gonna be bringing our black string all the way from the all the way from the right where we left it. And now this is another part where you should be careful about. See the other shiny string we have? We're going to move that over the way. So we're going to be passing, making sure they don't, well, tangle together. So just be sure they don't tangle together at the bottom part, because you don't want to see it popping up through your bracelet. Trust me, it can be extremely annoying. So we're going to make our two knots on the edge, which is one backward knot and one backward forward knot. Now we're ending this row. For our ninth row, we're going to be making two black knots on the edge again. Yeah, again. But this time we're going to be taking one. I hit my camera. So we're going to be taking one from the previous white knots we did and removing it. So we're going to be making three. You get what I did? We're going to be making three black knots this time, because we're going to be gradually reducing our whites for the eyes as we go along, so we can make an eye, I guess. So three white knots here this time. And you notice that sometimes I'm going throughout this period where I'm swapping through black and shiny, I'm going to be putting my black, when I pass it through my white, I'm going to be putting it towards the back of the string instead of going forward. I think you would see that instead, like I did doing it now. I'm moving it towards the left, and then I'm bringing the shiny string into the middle, so they don't meet at all and they don't get the chance to tangle. Now here we're going to be making two shiny knots, two shiny forward knots. It's over and under one string, because we're going to be bringing it back to do the bridge of the notes, which I believe is what we're going to be doing. It's so confusing. I really don't know. I don't think I've ever made a skull. I'm not a Halloween person. So that's why. And we don't even celebrate Halloween in my country, so that's another reason, I guess. Now we're going to be swapping back to white, and we're going to be making two knots of white now. So two, I guess. So we're going to be making a color switch right about now. Yeah, over in one string and out. Then complete our second half of the forward knot and make one more forward knot with white. Now we're going to be swapping back to shiny string again, and we're going to have two knots of shiny as we previously had in this row. So here I am, and I'm just checking to make sure my strings are untangled, and I'm pretty sure they're not, so I'm quite happy with that. Now we're going to make the 3 knots of white. Yeah, 3 knots of white. I can feel my voice is dimming a bit. Yeah, I'm getting pretty exhausted. No, we haven't even gone half of the video yet, so I will go recharge while I let this video play. So I'll be back in a while. So here I am, I'm back and I feel a bit better. So now we're going to end this like how we started. So bringing back our black string, we are going to make 2 knots, making sure they don't tangle. Always make sure your strings don't tangle. So bringing back our black knot, we're going to make one forward knot and then one forward backward knot. Okay, here we are at the end of this row, and starting our 10th row, we're going to make 2 black knots again. So we're going to be repeating that. We're going to have a forward backward knot on the edge and a backward knot beside that. My string is getting short, so I'll be sure to swap that out soon. More like in this row, the other side though. So now taking the next 2 strings, we're going to be making 2 white backward knots over that. So we're going to make the switch right now. And here we are. We're going to introduce our shiny string again. We'll bring it back from wherever it's hiding, because we're going to have 3 knots of shiny string. You can see how our eyes are forming quite gradually as a fact, but the lovely thing about alphas is that you get to see the beauty come. It might be slowly, but it will surely come at the end of the day. And as a beginner, it might be a bit wonky or not that nice, but well, practice makes you better. So we're gonna have 3 knots, and I'm just going to be speeding up a bit. The pattern for this will be linked in the description. I forgot to mention that too, so it's linked in the description below. And now that we're at the end of this part 2, we're just going to bring back our white string, which is already here, and we're going to make 2 knots of white. Remember, we're making the bridge of the nose right now, so it has to look good. Making 2 knots of white, and then after that we're going to, well, go back to shiny string then. So now we're going to be bringing back our shiny string. I'm going to making 3 rows of shiny, and this is more like the second to the last row of our eye. Yeah, second to the last row where we're making our eye. Like I've mentioned before, I have exams mid-November, but I'm not going to stop posting. So what I've done is that I've recorded a lot of videos over this past week that I can edit and schedule so that I have enough videos for the period of mid-November to mid-December, because that's when my exams are ending. Now we're done, so we're going to be bringing back our white string, and we're going to have something stuck in my throat. So we're going to have 2 white knots like how we did on the right. So take the 2 strings next to that, because we're gonna have to do 2 white knots there. 2 white knots there. Now we're going to bring back our black string. Now, because my black string is a bit short, it might not be able to get through to this part. So I'm thinking I'm going to have to introduce a new string about now. Alright. And I'm just going to like continue without it, because if I introduce a new string, it's simply like switching colors. So I'm just going to make my color switch on the second to the last string on the left and continue just like that. And we are going to be doing 2 knots of black as usual to end this pretty simple row. And remember, on the edge we're going to be making a backward forward knot to end this row, and then I hope so far, because we've already reached like the middle of this video, I hope that it's been going well for you so far. And if you're still with me, I'm happy and I'm glad that you're not bored and you're not tired. That means you really actually want to make this bracelet. Because we're going to bring our white string, and we're only going to make 1 white knot. So just 1 this time, because like we're getting to the which is the last row of the eye, so we're like closing it up already. So now we're going to pass our black, move it towards the left so it's out of the way, as we bring our shiny string up through that side. Is in this part we have 3 knots of shiny string, just 3 this time, I know, just 3 knots of the shiny part here. So now what we currently are, we're going to be making 4 knots instead. So we have to have 4 knots of white now, because we are I think we're making the supposed to be the pointed part of the nose, but since it's a skull, it's not pointed, I guess. At least not in our bracelet, it's gonna be flat. But so we're gonna be making 4 white knots, and we're making our color switch, passing our shiny string on the 3 other strings on the right. Yeah, we're going to right this time. I know I said I was going to be talking throughout this bracelet, but I'm 39 minutes into this tutorial and I think I have run out of things to say, because it's like morning part and I'm just like making a voiceover while I'm journaling at the same time. And yeah, I think I've written everything I wanted to say down on paper, so I have nothing more in my head. Now we're going to be switching back to shiny string as we make our 3 shiny knots, shiny forward knots. I think I've not been calling the knots the kind of knots I've been making because I thought they were obvious, but just in case you're not, let me know in the description below, so in the next tutorial I will call out more names of knots or so. And hello, we're gonna be bringing back our white string right now, and well, we only have one knot of white, so remember that. Now we're going to bring you back our black string. Oh, it's gonna make a very good journey all the way from the left to the to the right, and we're going to make the final knots for this row with this. So we're gonna have two knots. One will be a forward knot and one will be a forward backward knot. And I'm zooming in so you guys can see what I'm doing at the end, at the back. So I'm bringing the Chinese string forward and the other one is at the back, so they don't meet at all throughout the whole turning. And you can see that my black string isn't any way in the way, so it's not going to stick out at all. So I can just like finish my knot and show you what it's like. So look at it now. You can notice that my Chinese string isn't popping up anywhere. You can actually see my white string through it, but that's all. That's how it should look like. Now remember that for the end of this row we are going to be making, we're going to be making a forward backward knot, and then to begin the next row, which is our 12th row, we're going to be starting with the same two knots, one forward backward knot and then a backward knot, but we're going to be bringing our white string back here again, and we're going to be making 5 white knots this time. So that's five backward knots of white string with the white string, sorry. And if you've gotten this far in the tutorial, I would like you to please subscribe so you can see more tutorials and more videos I post, and like, subscribe, and comment about anything you like or anything you want me to change or any video you want me to do a tutorial for. I'm taking requests. We're bringing back our shiny string and I'm making two knots, two backward knots of shiny string this time, because this is supposed to be our nose. Yeah, it's small, but it's our nose, and the only nose we're getting this in this video. So, okay. So we're on our second knot, and we're going to make 5 knots of the white one again. So take the next 5 strings, because we're going to be making white so knots with that instead. You think for the fact that I'm currently in university, I would have outgrown the fact that all those back to school vibes and all the stress and everything, anxiety, here I am still here by 3 o'clock bothering about school. So we are going to be bringing back our black string, making sure it doesn't tangle with our shiny as usual, because we're going to be making the 2 ending knots with that here. Yeah, 2 ending knots we made with this on this side. So we're going to make one backward knot and then one backward forward knot on the edge. Remember that. Now for this new row, we're going to start with two knots. That's one backward forward knot and then one forward knot of black. Then we're going to switch it out to white. Now this part is going to be sped up because we're going to be making 11 knots of white string. And while we're making this, I'm going to have to switch or introduce a new white string because I'm almost out of string currently. So that's going to be there. And well, since it's 11, I think that showing you a few for splitting up is okay, because at this point you should already be familiar in how to make knots for alphas. So well, I'm doing that either way. Now for the end of this, we're going to be making 3 knots of black. So we're going to have 3 knots. That's 2 forward knots and 1 forward backward knot. And if you notice, this row we didn't use shiny string at all. Yeah, we didn't use any shiny string at all. That's just for the pattern, because like I said, the shiny string is only going to be used for the eyes, the nose, and the mouth, and we didn't make any of that here, so it wasn't used. Don't bother yourself about it. Now we're done with this row, and for the next row, which is row 14, we're going to bunch the last 2 strings here, which is the right. So the first and second string is going to be bunched together, and we're going to make a forward backward knot over both as one, because remember how we're doing it, we're making another bunch. So getting started with that, and then after we finish making that, we're going to proceed to make 2 backward knots, because for this row we need to make 3. So we've already done 1 and we're doing the next 2 now. Now we're going to be bringing back our white as we proceed to make 2 2 knots of white. So that's going to be 2 backward knots, of white. And now for this next row, we're going to bring back shiny. Yeah, we're bringing back shiny, yes. And we're going to be proceeding to make 4 knots of shiny. So just count the 4 knots because this is the beginning of our mouth. Now this is just weird that I'm calling our facial features, but you get it. We'll make it a skull, a ghost skull. So yeah. Now we're bringing back the whites for the next 2 knots, which will be backward knots of white. for the end of this row, we're going to be bringing back our black strings because we have 3 black backward knots to make. So remember, we're going to make 2 individual backward knots with the black string, and then the last 2 strings on the left will be bunched together to make a backward forward knot. That will be the end of the row. Now for this new row, we are actually going to be bunching up 3 strings together. So add 1 extra string to the bunch we currently have and make a backward forward knot on it. And then after doing this, we're only going to make 1 individual backward knot. So we have 1 more forward knot to make. Just 1 knot. And then we're bringing back our white string because we have 2 knots of white to make. Yeah, 2 knots of white to make here. Now we're going to be making the same knots again for our mouth. So bringing back our shiny string, we're going to have 4 forward knots. That's 4 knots, 4 forward knots of shiny in this part. And I'm going to speed it up again as usual. So hurry up, I guess. We're going to bring back our white string as we have our remaining. Well, take the next 2 strings and we're going to make 2 white forward knots with those. I think I used the wrong white string because I didn't cut it. The other skull bracelet I made had the white string taken out the back, so I just took it off because I didn't want to waste it or add it to my string collection, and I think I made a mistake. I should have cut string for this. Oh well, guess I'm just gonna have to cut another set of strings again. Now, bringing back our black string because we are going to make our other side, which is the end of the row, as usual. So, bringing it back, remember that we're going to make 1 individual backward knot, and then we're going to bunch up 3 strings, which means we're going to be adding 1 extra one to the strings we already have, the bunch of strings we already have on the right. So now we're going to make the same backward knot over this bunch. So I make a forward backward knot over this bunch that has 3 strings in it. Yeah. Then we're going to proceed to make 2 individual backward knots. Yeah, you're thinking if I we're reducing the white again. So our second backward knot. Then we're going to introduce our white knot. Oh, sorry, we're going to bring back our white knot, but this time we're only bringing it back for just one knot. It's been reduced from 11 knots to 1 knot, and I still feel happy though, so it doesn't matter regardless. We're going to bring back our shiny string for our mouth again, which has 4 knots. So bringing that back, I'm going to speed it up again. Hope you guys don't mind. Now we're going to bring back that next string, the white string, because we're going to make one knot beside that shiny. So we're removing the shiny from it because we're making one white knot. And save yourself the stress, and this time pass your string under and towards the right side, because we're going to be bringing our black string immediately after this knot, which is now. So bringing in our black string, we are going to be making 3 knots. That would be 2 individual backward knots and 1 backward forward knot on the edge. Now the edge still has a bunch of strings, so we're going to make 1 backward forward knot over those bunches as one. So that's total of 3 knots. Now for this next row, we're going to add 1 string to the bunch on the to all the bunches, but we're going to add 1 to the bunch on the left now, which means we're going to have 4 strings in that bunch, and we're going to make a backward forward knot over that, and then after we're going to make 1 individual forward knot, because now we're going to bring our right string for our individual white knot, which would be forward knot in this case. Now I'm going to bring our shiny, because we have to make our mouth again, and it's as usual 4 individual strings. Why am I using the word individual? We have 4 knots here, so that's going to be 1 individual knot each, individual forward knot each. Yeah, I used it. And now we're bringing in white for our single white forward knot, so we're going to be making now. Now we're going to bring back our black string as we make 2 knots of black. Now we're going to make 1 individual knot of black, and then we're going to add whatever's left into our bunch, which means we're going to have about I believe it's going to be 4 strings here. Yes. So we're going to make our first individual knot, then we're going to make the knot of the bunch, which will have 4 strings in it. So now for our next row, we're going to add 1 more string to the bunch of what we have on the right. So we're going to add 1 string to that, and then we're going to make a forward backward knot over that. Yeah, so here we're only going to make 1 black knot, and then after this we're going to bring our white string, because we're going to make 1 backward knot of white. And you can see I already introduced a new white string because I was tired of fighting with the short length of the other one. And now after this, which is now, we're going to bring back our shiny string as we pick the 4 next strings beside where we are now, because they're going to be making our mouth again. So I'm going to speed this up. You already know that. We're going to bring back our white string because we have to make one knot of white. So now we're going to bring our black string, and it's going to be hard to make sure that they don't tangle here, but you should try, because if they tangle a little bit then you'll be seeing shiny sticking out through the other part that's not supposed to be the mouth, and I don't know how that would look because that's not what I want. And I'm just going to swap how I do on the edge. Now before I forget, I'm going to remember we're going to bunch up 5 strings here to make our first to make our knot. So we're going to bunch up 5 strings, or 5 strings in a bunch, anyhow you want to say, and then we'll make our backward forward knot to end this 18th row. Now for the beginning of our 19th row, we're going to make the same backward forward knot over the same amount of strings. That is the same over a bunch. Let's just say a bunch, yeah. Then we're going to make 2 white knots this time because we are kind of closing our mouth. So we're going to be making 2 forward knots. Bringing in our shiny string, we're also going to make 2 forward knots with our shiny. And after this, you can say goodbye to shiny because this is going to be the last row we use it for. Now we're going to bring our white string back as we make 2 forward knots of white. Now we're going to bring back our black string as we make the end of this part, which will be 1 backward forward knot. Oh, I don't think I mentioned that we don't use the flat alpha technique on the edges of the bracelets. That's what we have the straight edge technique for. So we're just gonna switch them without pressing each through any of the knots. Just put it under and keep going. And now for our new row, since this shiny is not gonna need it, I'm just gonna add it under the tape I have here, so it doesn't get in the way of my bracelet. And then to continue, we're going to add 1 extra string to the bunch we have here. So we currently have 6 in this bunch, and now we are going to make 1 forward backward knot over this, 1 forward backward knot over this, then bring back our white string as we proceed to make 4 backward knots. So that's going to be on 4 strings, so 4 individual strings, 4 individual backward knots. Now we're going to take the last set of strings, the last set of big strings we have, bring our black string back, and we're going to make 1 knot over all that. Yes, we're going to make 1 knot over all that. And we should also have 6 in this bunch here as well. And that's the end of this, which is our 20th row. if I believe I'm counting correctly. Now for the beginning of our 21st row, we are going to add one string to that bunch too. Yeah, one string to each of these sides, leaving only two in the middle. And then we are going to make one backward forward knot on the edge of the left, and then two forward knots. Yeah, we have two forward knots. And I'm not going to speed this part up because we are already towards the end and I would like you to see it. Now we are going to bring back our black string as we make our final backward forward backward knot on the edge, and we can say bye bye to the white string too because we're not going to be using it anymore after this row. Now for this row we're just going to now share the two knots remaining, the two strings, into each bunch. So we have 8 in each now. So we have 8 in each string, and we're going to make on the right, we're going to make a backward forward knot, sorry, a forward backward knot, sorry, and then on the left, we're going to make a backward forward knot. And when we're done with this, we're just going to make our ties. Now, if you notice that the ends of my keychain are tassel like, so we're going to be making like a backward or a forward knot. Now, if you want to make square knots, that's what you can do. But I'm going to be using one of the big strings I have, the one I use for my loop, and I'm going to be making a backward forward knot because my current leading string is too short and I'm not interested in adding any, so I'm just going to use the one that I have a little bit of extra from making my loop, and it's also going to be my bass string. And I'm going to make 4 backward forward knots, just 4 of them. And here I am, I'm done making my tassel like end, and I'm just going to remove the tape and cut off the back of my strings, and I will be showing you this time because I don't show it normally and somebody asked a question about it. So this means sniffing as close to the edges as I possibly can without cutting any of the other string that I actually used in the bracelet. And this is what it's going to look like. This is what we just made, and I definitely just like the shiny string the most. Oh, this glue on my bracelet. Anyway, it'll come out later, and this is it. And for our tassel like end, we're just going to cut it a bit. Now this is it out now for keychain. If you would like to learn how to make afros a bit better and you are interested in watching tutorials on that, while there are many on YouTube, I have another one that will be linked in the description and card and will pop up on the screen in a few minutes time. And it's about how to make a half heart. It's extremely easy and it does take less time than this one did. Anyway, I'll have to thank you for watching and have a nice day. Well, bye!